Thank you, Ryan. We're in a series on healing. And so if you have missed the last two messages, it was on healing of resentments and healing of grief. Healing of resentments, just to briefly highlight and recap some of that. Some of us have held on to resentments, thinking that it would give us magical power to change another person. That if we resented them just long enough and resented them deeply enough, somehow, cosmically, it would create this change in their lives. And hopefully at some point we realize, oh, that didn't work very well, okay? So we've learned to let go of those resentments. We've learned to recognize that we are the ones that give resentments life. No one else created the resentment. We create the resentment. Now, resentment is different from accountability. One can still be held accountable without holding resentment. Just as when my son wrecked my car, there was accountability, but there was no resentment on my part. It was just, okay, what do we do now? How did this happen? Are you okay? Are they okay? What's the car look like? So, then we looked at healing of grief. And grief occurs in all kinds of different forms. It can be the losses that we experience due to physical changes in our body, our health situation. It could be related to finances or to our job or to relationships that have been strained. And as I stated last week, I couldn't find a single time that I've had resentment where it did not involve a loss. Every resentment I've ever experienced was connected to a type of loss of some sort. Bless you. And good to hear you, Mickey. Good to have you here. And every single time that I've felt any kind of resentment, I now ask myself, what kind of loss am I experiencing? What kind of grief am I experiencing? So when the woman was glaring at me on the sidewalk about my pod being in her street, it didn't have her name on it, but somehow it became her street, even though I had a legal permit, I had just a little bit of resentment. And I thought, what is that resentment about? And it's about my sense of grief, Even though I know I'm called to be here and I love being here, I had some of this grief about selling off 3/4 of our stuff or giving it away and moving away from family and friends, only to have a woman glaring at me in the sidewalk. And then she called the police and, But my prayer had been to meet new people. And so, met the police. I've met lots of neighbors who stopped by to tell me about my pod. It's been a great time, and I've gotten closer to folks. And I anticipate that woman and I will get closer, And I'm sure we'll connect again sometime soon. So, now we're looking at healing through service. And I want to look at how, in all of these lessons, if you haven't noticed, in all of these messages, I call them lessons because I feel like, or you could call them a treatment. They're all about healing. They're all about moving into a deeper relationship with one another. And how are we with each other? How do we show up with each other? Are we really in relationship with each other, or are we carrying grudges and baggage and hitting each over the head with our baggage that we're carrying around? And we're pounding each other with our baggage, but not realizing it's our baggage. We're the ones carrying it around with us from place to place. So how do we transcend all this mucky-muck that we sometimes wake up with? Now, I asked people in the early service, and I was impressed with the early service, let me tell you. There were several people who could affirmatively respond to this, and let me check it out with this group, because I do not fit this category. Okay, but how many people here wake up every single morning enthused, from the get-go, as soon as you wake up, enthused about life, just filled with gratitude, knowing yourself as the presence of God, knowing that every person you encounter that day is the presence of God greeting you, knowing that every situation, even if it's the police being called on you, that every situation is the presence of God showing up at your doorstep. How many of you wake up like that every single morning? Would you please raise your hand? All right, keep them up. Mari's going, oh, come on. No, I'm taking note. Okay, because I want to hang out with you folks. I can learn from you. And if I ever spot a time where maybe that's in question, remember you raised your hand that morning? Anyway, most of us struggle a bit with life. Most of us struggle with the challenges of life. The first premise of Buddhism is life is suffering. Well, there's a happy thought. Aren't you glad you came to church this morning? Some of us encounter suffering throughout our lives, conflict. And if you look at most stories, if they're any good at all, have some conflict in them. If you watch a movie and it doesn't have some sorts of conflict, it's a bit boring. And I think some of us create conflict in our lives so that we won't be bored. But there's a better way. There are ways we can be excited about life. We can be enthused about life. We can live zest and zeal without conflict. Here's one of the ways, and it's a great spiritual discipline. And it's through service. And so, this comes from Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 7. And this comes from the New International Version. And it starts out in your relationships with one another. That's a hint. Like, this is why I'm telling you this. This is about your relationships with each other. So, what would be so important that Paul would want to tell us about relationships? Have the same mindset as Christ Jesus, who being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. You know, like, hey, I'm the presence of God, and I wanted that parking space. Pull your car out of it. All right, so he didn't do that. Well, he didn't drive a car, but all right. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness. And that phrase there, made himself nothing, is the Greek word kenosis, which literally means to empty oneself, to empty it out. Well, not emptying out the true nature, emptying out the stuff that gets in the way, emptying out the resentments, emptying out the prolonged anger, emptying out the grudges, emptying out those things that we struggle with so that our full Christ self can show up. And that's how we're to be with each other. There was someone I went to school with. Don't know if she's watching. If you are, hi, Linda. Okay. And so Linda and I took SEE classes together. And in SEE class, we were studying about the fact that each one of us shows up as the Christ. And so when she would walk into the room, I would call her LTC, Linda the Christ. And so she'd walk in, there's LTC. And you'd see this big grin, and she'd look kind of sheepish. But eventually she began to own it. Like, yeah, I'm Linda the Christ. But it wasn't about being arrogant. It's about learning how to serve. And Jesus as the way shower, showed us how to live a life of service, not arrogance. If you find yourself becoming arrogant, you might ask yourself, what am I feeling insecure about? What am I overcompensating for? What loss or grief in my life or what woundedness is in my life that I am overcompensating and I'm trying to fool people? All right? So, next, from the Bhagavad Gita. Oh, yeah, like I said, tomorrow is Krishna's birthday. The name Krishna means all attractive beauty. And so the idea of Krishna is this beauty of God, this presence of God that's just all beautiful. And so, after I speak tomorrow evening here for the Unity All Believers Interfaith Ministry, then I'll go to the chapel and we'll chant and dance. Okay, so chapter 11, verse 54. The first word is bhaktya, devotional service. And then you come over here, the third word, ananyaya, without being mixed with fruitive activities. Fruitive activities, what's that mean? Well, it means service without an agenda. Service without expecting something back. Well, who does that kind of service? I mean, what's the point of doing service if you get nothing back, right? I mean, what's in it for me? I mean, that's a popular question, isn't it? What's in it for me? Why should I do that? JR, I talked about you in the earlier service, so I might as well give you equal time now. So, yesterday morning I was here with my pod. My pod and I have become good buds. We've been around the world together. So I was hanging out with my pod, and JR walked up because there's volunteers who come here on every Saturday morning at 8:30 or 9. I'll say 8:30, so. And they clean up the grounds. So they save us thousands of dollars so that we don't pay a landscaping crew. Volunteers come in and do this and do an excellent job, And so JR came up to me and he had one of these masks on and he pulled the mask down and he was just brimming with happiness. And I'm thinking, what's he so happy about? He's been out here raking and scraping and working outdoors. How could he be happy? And he's like, Reverend Tim, it's such a joy to serve here. I just love doing this and love taking care of these grounds. And I saw Jack out there and Sean and others. And JR said, I just love being in the outdoors. It just feels so good. I'm just so happy to do this. And I'm like, wow, that's service. That's real service out of the heart without expecting anything back. I just admire that. And there's so many people here who give of themselves regularly. We have our camera crew back here. Yeah. We have people who are greeters and ushers to make people feel welcome, right? We have people who I am envisioning will be a hospitality team, to be out in the courtyard, to fold up tables and chairs, to make people feel welcome out there. Yeah, I'm envisioning a Malama Pono group, a group that will take care, is what that means, that will notice when someone's been missing in action, and they will contact you. And, like Ann Valeron, who just had surgery, we send you our love. And, contact them or see them in the hospital or make that connection. There's all kinds of ways. I'm looking forward to resurrecting our middle school, high school, millennial youth programs and having teachers, youth workers. There's all kinds of ways to volunteer. And I think right outside these doors is a table where Francine and Jade will be, if you're interested in looking at ways that you would like to serve here. And some of you watching online might be thinking, how can I serve? There is no distance in spirit. And so you can pray for us. You can send us your love. You can come and see us when you're in the area. There's a donate button. There's all kinds of ways to serve. But wherever you are and wherever each one of you is, there are ways to serve. The other day I was moving stuff out of the pod, And Richard showed up the first day, and Richard and I did a marathon up and down the stairs. And we got to the point where we couldn't even think. You know, the mind was gone. And it was kind of blissful, actually, or delirious, I'm not sure which. And then the next day, other folks showed up. And I'm thinking, why are they doing this? Why are they giving of their time? Why are they out here in the heat sweating and carrying all this heavy stuff with me? And I've wondered why. Why is it that people do some of the things they do? And I've seen staff here. You know, I was here 11 o'clock or 11:30 on, I think it was Friday night. Sometimes I lose track of the days. Might have been Thursday. I don't know. And I was working on stuff. And Judy was still here from our staff working on stuff. And I've seen Lisa here late or on her days off. Or I've seen other people and volunteers in our front office. I mean, why are they doing this? And I realize they're doing it out of love. They're doing it out of service. They're doing it because they want to make a difference. They want to reach out. And so Krishna says to Arjuna, this is from the Bhagavad Gita, "My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding." The reason that's true is the nature of God is to give. The nature of God is to serve. The nature of God is to love. And so when we give, when we serve, when we love, we are connecting with our divine presence and living that presence forth and getting in touch with our true being, transcending, you know, our mucky-muck, narcissistic, me thinking, and transcending to our higher self. So Gandhi, who is a mentor for me, says service which is rendered without joy helps neither the servant nor the served, but all other pleasures and possessions pale into nothingness before service which is rendered in a spirit of joy. There was one occasion where a person had Gandhi down on the ground and was choking him, and Gandhi just laughed. And the guy let go. He's like, what are you going to do with somebody who's laughing while you're choking him, you know? He was into serving with joy. The best way to find yourself, says Gandhi, is to lose yourself in the service of others. What I have found is that service has stretched me and taken me beyond where I was, you know? So in January when I was here, and I was sitting in this seat, and I will look at the stained glass window that you will see in just a little bit. And I was sitting there realizing I'm called to this church. Spirit is speaking to me, and I'm called to serve here. I'm called to love these people, every single one of them, no matter how they show up. To love every single person. And I'm here to help bring healing. I wonder if they know I'm called here. Wonder if I'll have the chance to come back. Wonder if I'll get to see that stained glass window again. I wonder if I'll get to see Zamar, because I had become kind of a groupie, you know, of Zamar. I couldn't wait to tune in, and you know, I'd sing along, and yeah, there's Ralph, there's Don, there's Johanna, woo! And Emily and Max weren't on there when I was watching. But you know, the service that you give touches other people's lives in ways that you don't even know about. And I am so grateful to be here to serve. And so these are some of the young students I was with in India, helped to teach English. And, you know, I was teaching an English class. And they were used to being able to ask their English teachers questions in Hindi. And so they'd ask me a question in Hindi, and I said, this is an English class. You will have to ask me the question in English. And so they all grouped together and started conferring with one another, formulating what an English question or English statement would be, which is a much better way to learn. They're learning from each other, and they're putting together sentences, and then proudly, the representative of the group would raise his hand and, bring forth his very articulate English question. And so I would respond, and students came up to me afterwards and said, "You know speak Hindi?" "I know speak Hindi." "You know speak Hindi?" "No, I know speak Hindi." "What the problem you know speak Hindi?" "No problem, just don't speak Hindi." But I realized I was the first person they had ever met that didn't speak Hindi. I was in areas and in ashrams where white people rarely show up, And so I might have been the first white person they had ever talked to, not that. And so we formed this bond, and every time I see them, my heart goes out. And, sometimes I hear them calling me in the night. Come back and serve us. We love you." And I figure I got so much more out of serving them. I learned how much I have in life. This is the poorest of the poor. And in India, that's saying a lot. There's a lot of poor people in India. These are the poorest of the poor. And they're clothed and fed and schooled for free. And look how happy they are. They're not complaining about their lack. They're not complaining that their BMW broke down. They're not complaining that their stock went down a few points. They're happy for life, and they're giving themselves in service. And that is one of the most powerful means there is to transform our lives, is to be engaged in service. This is our sister church. If you didn't know, I connected with a church in northern Nigeria where there has been hundreds of people, I think it's hundreds, that have been killed in conflict between Christians and Muslims. And it's such a sad thing because we all serve the same God. We all are all part of the same presence. We're all living that same presence. And unity in Nigeria is the largest number of unity churches, the largest number of unity folks outside of the United States. They're in Nigeria. And sometimes in very poor conditions. And the unity church in Nigeria gives itself very, very strongly in service to others and sees themselves as very much being a Christian church. And you might notice over here on the right, it says Unity Church Nigeria, Christ Unity Center. And then here's another picture. That white building is our current church. This is Reverend David over here to the left. And you see this big structure? They're gradually, as they can, building their own structure. And when I met Reverend David at the convention, I was so touched by his heart. He has a heart of service. He has a heart of love. And I said, Reverend David, can we become prayer partners? Can our churches become sister churches and stay in touch with each other and pray for one another? And he was so excited, and he's been sending me pictures, and he's just so grateful, and grateful for all of you. So know that this church is praying for us. We are being served by having others pray for us. And we are serving them by praying for them. Because this is all about service. Service is one of the greatest ways in which we can bring about healing in my life. When I wake up feeling sorry for myself, when I wake up feeling like things aren't going right, you know, if I show up in genuine love and in genuine service somewhere, I notice that I tap into my true Christ nature. One of my favorite things is Keiki Chapel. Thursday mornings at 9 o'clock, we have Keiki Chapel. We have the preschool come over, the Unity School, you know, kids from 2 to 4 years old. What can a 2 or 4-year-old give you? They give love. They come up to me and they hug me, and somehow they see the very best in us. And it's a reminder, it's a mirror of our true worth. It's a reminder to us of who we really are, that we are this presence of God in action. And that's who we are to be with each other. That's how we're to show up here at Unity Church of Hawaii or wherever you are. We're here to serve. We're here to love. We are here to give. And you may ask, what do I have to give? Yourself, your gifts, who you are. That divine presence that you are touches people in ways that you cannot even calculate. And it has a ripple effect through the universe that continues to give and give and give. Devotional service is one of the highest means of transforming our lives into what we truly are. As I said, I would watch online for a long time as a groupie. And I'd watch the musicians. I'd watch Alethea. I'd watch this tremendous band, you know. And I think someday I'm going to get to meet these guys, you know. Do I bring an autograph book? What do I do? And Zamar would always touch my heart. And I think about these wonderful people who every week practice, learn new music, who give of their time and of their heart to serve us. People who give just out of joy, just out of service. And I remember asking God, will I have the privilege of being their pastor? Really, God? Is it going to be that good? It is. I am so grateful for Samar. And they are our volunteers that we are honoring today. Zamar, would you come up, please? We just love and appreciate every single one of you so much. Wow. I don't think you can know how much you touch our hearts. You know? And the service you give us, the love you give us. Did Jade already give you your certificates? Yeah, you got your certificates? And we have just some other little gifts for you, okay? We just love and appreciate you. Okay, I'm missing one. Is it back there? You get one too. Thank you. Thanks. And we just love and appreciate you. And if you would extend your hands, let us bless Zamar together. Repeat after me. We bless you. We thank you. And we love you from our heart. Thank you for your service. We honor you. Let's give them some more love. Thank you.